first hybrid meeting, so this is the first time we're meeting both online and in person. And so the idea was to hopefully gain more people, more representatives at these meetings, so that we could, and it would be easier for them to come in from wherever they were, dial in, and that would help with our population figures, as it were. So thank you for that, and thank you for your forbearance as we work our way through. Could I please ask that you have your mobiles off if possible, just to stop an embarrassing jingle from interrupting us. We don't have a fire drill planned, but if there is one, then follow the signs, the green signs. You can go down the side or out the front and gather at the front car park. Right, this is an AGM as well, so as the outgoing chair, I'm going to step aside and allow Wendy to take over for the nomination. Thank you.
Hello everybody and welcome to the meeting. So the first item on the agenda is the election of the chair. Are there any nominations, please?
Well, of course we do. I'll nominate Councillor McFarlane.
You do?
Oh, yes, I did. I'll nominate Councillor McFarlane.
Thank you. Is there a seconder, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any other nominations? Okay, all in favour? Looks unanimous, so hand over to the chair.
Thank you very much. I must be doing something right, or not, as the case may be. Could I ask for the appointment of vice chair? Could I have nominations for vice chair, please? Nobody online?
Can I nominate Councillor Webb?
Councillor Webb, are you happy to take that on board? No? Yes, okay. Okay, so Councillor Webb has agreed. Is there a seconder for Councillor Webb? Okay, many seconders. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Online as well? No, okay. Councillor Anne Webb, thank you. You're the vice chair again for another year. I'd now like to go for apologies for absence. Wendy?
Yes. Please note I have an apology from Councillor Martin Sweeney of Monmouth Town Council, who cannot attend.
Can I ask your name, sir?
Robert Hatton, Monmouth Town Council.
Robert
Hatton, Hatton.
Thank you.
Okay, I have apologies as well from Johan Williams, Barry Durkin and Arthur Lee as well.
Right, okay.
Sorry, Chair. Councillor Rook was in us for a meeting. It only finished about 1:30, so I don't know if Councillor Rook has made it there yet. But he was at us for a scrutiny meeting, which I was also on, which is why I couldn't attend in person. But if he's not there, then I apologise on behalf of him. Okay,
all right, Stephen. He may join later. Yeah, thank you for that. Anybody else who knows that somebody should be here but they're not? Okay. Got hybrid introductions. In fact, what I'll do is I'll go quickly around the table. If you could just tell me who you are, what your name is, and who you're representing, and that will help. I'll start online, if I may. Oh yes, please make sure you press the yellow button if you want to speak, and turn it off when you've spoken. Is it okay? The button on the right with the hand and the other signal. Okay. So introductions. I'll go for Colette first, please.
Hi, Colette Bosley. I'm Monmouthshire County Council. I'm the Countryside Destination Environment Manager, and I'm the temporary chair of the TOPE Technical Officers Working Group for the Wye Valley.
Thank you, Colette. Stephen.
Steve Garrett, I'm a Monmouth Town Councillor and also councillor for Monmouth on the County Council for Overmono Ward in Monmouth.
Thank you. Matthew.
Yeah, good afternoon. Matthew Price, National Farmers Union, Herefordshire.
Thank you. And James?
James Bissett, Herefordshire Council. I'm the council representative on the steering group for the National Landscape.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, and then we'll go around the table. Martin?
Good afternoon, everybody. Martin Quine from the Environment Agency. I'm the place manager for Shropshire, Herefordshire and Gloucestershire.
Thank you. Amartya?
Hi, I'm Amartya Dev. I'm a Senior Planning Officer, Gloucestershire County Council.
Thank you. And Anne?
I represent Monmouthshire County Council, the Wye Valley OMB, and I'm the representative for St Albans. Thank you.
Mel?
Hello, I'm Melanie Getler from Colton Town Council, Special Interest in Environment and Climate.
Thank you. Robert?
Yes, Robert Hatton. I'm representing Monmouth Town Council.
And Lynn?
Lynn Parker, representing One Voice Wales.
Thank you. And
yeah, Brian Jones,
Brian.
representing Herefordshire Council, local councils, and I'm chairman of Lee Parish Council.
Thank you. And Dave?
Dave Wheeler, in this auditorium, I'm representing the Forester Dean District Council, but I'm also on Staunton and Newland Parish Councils.
Thank you. And Emma?
I'm Councillor Emma Brain, and I'm representing the County Council of the Ward of Wisham.
Thank you. And then at the top table we've got?
Wendy Barnard, Monmouthshire County Council Democratic Services, clerking today.
Okay, thank you. And I'm Chris McFarling. I'm District and County Councillor, Forester Dean in Gloucestershire, and chair of this group, this committee. Thank you.
And Andrew Blake, manager for the Wye Valley National Landscape team.
Great. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Do I have any declarations of interest on anything that's coming up on the agenda that you may have noticed? I tell you what, if something does come up and you feel as though your judgment might be blurred by your pecuniary or prejudicial interest, please raise your hand and let us know. And should there be a vote, then you can step aside from that. Thank you. Right, we've got a public question, actually. Dave.
Chair, I just wondered whether we have any knowledge of Gloucestershire Gloucestershire County Council representatives officially.
They are still vacant. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we will be looking to see if 2 can be appointed, but at the moment those posts are vacant. And it wouldn't be right for me to double up as... No. Is there...
Yeah. I mean, we've obviously raised it with Democratic Services and Gloucestershire County Council, and they're obviously working through the sort of the hierarchy and outside bodies. As the Wye Valley, we're bottom of the list, I fear, if they're going through them in alphabetical order.
Should have stayed as the AOMB, see you at the top then.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we've got public questions. We've got a question, the beginning of a question, which is what measures is the Wye Valley National Landscape Joint Advisory Committee, ourselves, putting in place to ensure that the beauty and biodiversity of the national landscape are not compromised? I'm going to pass this over to Andrew, who's got a response.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so we received an email. That's the question at the bottom, in a sense, because it's a very broad question that we could spend all day elaborating on, but it comes in a specific context. So I'll just read the context and then our response currently. So yes, this is sent from John De Pearce and a number of members of or group of public near Monmouth. So I'll read this. As part of the Monmouthshire Replacement Local Development Plan, Monmouthshire County Council is proposing to develop 270 houses in a modern, dense development around 200 metres from the Wye Valley National Landscape, and clearly within its setting. In December 2024, the National Landscape objected to the plan. Strategic objective that's from our management plan WVD3 states resist inappropriate development which will create a persistent and dominant feature out of keeping with the landscape of the AONB and or if it damages strategic qualities in the AONB. It then goes on, the Dixton Bat Group, a citizen science project backed by qualified archaeologists, has found that the ecological evidence underpinning the our LDP, the Replacement Local Development Plan, is flawed. The site is around 950 metres from Newton Court Stable Block, SSI, part of the Wye Valley and Forest of Dean Bat Roost SAC, a European site, and is used for foraging by greater horseshoe bats. The main evidence used for decision making was a 2021 ecological survey supplied by the developer Redrow Homes, which concluded that bat activity on the site was limited. The survey only identified 2 bat sites using the site. There was a subsequent 2024 ecology survey which the council has been using to justify its actions, but despite a freedom of information request, the council has not released the report, claiming that doing so would adversely affect the interests of Redrow Homes. The Dixton Bat project has placed 3 commercial-grade bat detectors at key locations around the site and has also conducted surveys using thermal imaging cameras. The results have now been validated by 2 qualified ecologists. The results have been remarkable. We have found extensive bat activity with many thousands of bat recordings. We have recorded 12 species of bats using the site, many of them rare and endangered, including greater horseshoe bats, lesser horseshoe bats, barbastrel bats, serotine bats and nocturnal bats. Many of these are Section 7 species of principal importance designated under the Environment Wales Act 2016, and all species are listed under Annex 4 of the Habitats Directive. We have also discovered that the site is likely widely used by bats from the national landscape. For instance, we have recorded high numbers of soprano pipistrelle bats, likely originating from the maternity roost in the national landscape at the Monmouth school site next to Dixton Church. We've also recorded a number of water-loving Dorbenton's bats, probably using the River Wye about 200 metres away. I have enclosed a copy of the interim Dixton Bat survey report. So my question to you is, as the Chair read out, what measures is the Wye Valley National Landscape Joint Advisory Committee putting in place to ensure that the beauty and biodiversity of the national landscape are not compromised? So our response so far to that is obviously, as the person recognised, that we objected to the site originally. We objected to the allocation of that site in the deposit plan consultation draft in December 2004, and that was based on its setting so close to the national landscape boundary and how that functions in terms of adjoining habitat and contributes to key views. It also impacts on a number of special qualities, which is why we felt it didn't, or it triggered the strategic objective WVD3, which was quoted in the question. And we were aware that the Monmouthshire Local Character Assessment included the site as high or medium sensitivity, yes, whether that was appropriately considered in the local development plan review evidence base. As we understand it, the review of the local development plan is due to go to Monmouthshire County Council scrutiny in September, and then to full council in October, and then the deposit plan would be, if that goes through full council, the deposit plan will then be submitted to Welsh Government. Understand that Monmouthshire County Council are also currently waiting for the updated or for a fresh ecological report from the consultants, which forms part of the evidence of the for the habitats regulation assessment. Monmouthshire County Council would then anticipate that the examination in public would take place over the winter or in the spring next year, when there would be further opportunity to make a statement and or submit evidence and yes, submit a hearing statement and participate in the hearings and raise further or raise concerns again direct from the inspectors. So you know, we objected originally. We keep an eye on the process, which is, you know, going through due process at the moment, and we have an opportunity to raise concerns when it comes to the examination in public later in the year or early next year. So in response, in the sense of what are we doing, we think we're doing everything we could and should anyway, but I'm happy to take instruction, obviously, from the committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Anybody got any comments? This is obviously a major development in the setting of the Wye Valley landscape, national landscape. There is another one as well there's another case in the Weald in southern England where a similar process is going on, where all local plans, and as you know, the government have insisted that we build up to, I think it's 300,000 buildings, houses in the very near future, and as a result of that, all local plans or local development plans are having to increase the numbers of allocations they make of houses. So I would imagine that Monmouthshire County Council are in a similar situation where they've got quite a large number of houses that they need to put around somewhere. And this is the site that has been chosen, possibly through what we call the SHLA process, where the landowner has given permission for those buildings to be constructed on there. In effect, he or she has sold the land in that case. What we have a response there. We also have our planning officer, do we not?
Yes.
Who will be...
Yeah.
If this goes to a hearing, which I hope it will, then we can have our planning officer put our position forward.
Yes, certainly. Catherine Laidlaw, planning officer, drew up the original response and has been working with or in liaison with planning colleagues in Monmouthshire County Council as closely as she's able, and so yes, she will be keeping a close eye on this, and I mean, we can certainly do a written response in due course. It's probably worth waiting for that ecological report, because that will then be the most up-to-date information, and that will be a public document when it's published, and then be able to respond back to the person in question here.
Okay. Does anybody have any further questions or comments? No? Okay. Do we have... Emma, sorry.
Yeah, so I just have one. How much influence does the national landscapes have on things like the RLDP, considering when construction takes place so close to a national landscapes area, it will affect wildlife within it. Obviously, they don't stop at the boundary, and therefore anything built that closely does have an effect. So, how much influence do you think the National Landscapes has, their comments have on RLDP? Thank you.
There's obviously legislation and statements in the policy plan in Wales which relate to the protection of the national landscape, and the PPW actually is quite robust in its statements about the setting of the national landscape as well. So as we said, this site is in the setting of it. So the policy context is reasonably straightforward, and obviously there are policies written within the LDP itself. So, but you're not, in a sense, you're obviously not basing the LDP on the policies written in it. It's being tested against national policy in this context. So that's in effect where the strength lies in interpreting the national policies. What our comments or input is, as officers and as a committee, it helps remind, I suppose, the relevant authorities of those the obligations and the public policy. We hope it is influential, but it's, as with all planning matters, it goes into the balance with all the other statutory considerations that local authorities and relevant authorities have to consider. So we'd like to think we're more powerful than we are, I'm sure.
Okay, thank you. A couple of things. We have a divide in the planning regard between the Welsh and the English side. In England, one of the objectives is to further, any development should further the objectives of the Wye Valley National Landscape. And so that means looking after it, protecting it. So if any development does not do that, it's thrown out. And we had a recent one where a campsite that we're going to build 41 cabins, permanent cabins, and the inspector threw it out on that precise reason, that in furthering the objectives of the Wye Valley National Landscape, this development was harmful in its setting and possibly, other elements of population pressure on the local SSSI. In the Welsh side, of course, we just have regard to, and that hasn't been upgraded to further the principles and the objectives too, which makes it a little weaker. However, I would be quite happy to, because it's cross-border and the Wye Valley National Landscape is cross-border, that we quote that planning application and the inspector's comments about it, because that shows it's not direct case law, but at least it shows that that consistency should be applied both sides of the river. And on top of that, I think I would like to propose that we are against this development so close to the national landscape, with its possible connotations on harmful effects on bats, which are protected, and that we have a vote to do that, because then if it's unanimous from those that are here, that are voting members, then we can add that to the sort of the list of comments and responses. Would everybody be okay with that? In that case, if I propose that we actually vote against this application.
I'm not opposing it, Chair, but as members of the Planning Committee in Monmouthshire, do we have to declare an interest? Do you think it's getting a bit?
Yes.
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 So that's what I'd
You
like
will not
to
be
do.
able to vote.
Pardon?
You will not be able to vote.
I will
on
not
that,
vote.
is it?
And I'm in the same boat, I'm afraid. I'm a member of the Planning Committee as well, so I'd have to abstain.
Am I overtreading?
I wonder, Chairman, whether it's more appropriate to come back with a further report in November, the next JAC, when we will have received the ecological report, and although there isn't any opportunity to formally feed in before then anyway, so the next opportunity will be when it goes to public examination, which will be after November, and so therefore we can do a full report to the JAC and get a let's say a more fully informed decision then.
My fear is that the local plan is being reviewed in October, and presumably this allocation will continue to be on there.
It's certainly in the plan as is currently, but I don't think there's an opportunity to get it withdrawn before, because it's going through the Monmouthshire sort of scrutiny and adoption process. I don't know, Colette, whether you've got your hand up, so whether it's appropriate for Colette to come in.
Just to say, really, the sort of position we're at the moment is that the window. Are you able to hear me? Sorry, I'm not sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, good. The window for comments and consultation obviously has currently now closed. We had the consultation period for the deposit plan back in the autumn, and we will have another opportunity, a second window again, obviously when we come to the public inquiry. So that probably is a good time to be able to bring those kinds of comments forward at that point. At the moment, all the comments that have come back, I think the council have had about 4,000 individual responses to the RLDP. So there's a lot of responses there, and I know that they will be very earnestly working through those responses and making sure that they are taking those comments on board. So there's no harm, obviously, in putting together and continuing to gather information and put those points in a format ready for the next stage. But I think, as you say, Andrew, I think the AONB have put their response together, which was a robust and strong one, I believe. So that's very positive, and I think helpful to obviously present the Wye Valley's case. So that does summarise it.
Okay, thank you, Colette. That's interesting. Dave.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think one's got to be careful what one wishes for, because I don't know what the situation in Monmouthshire is. Obviously, I do know what the situation is in the Forest of Dean, and it may well be that Monmouthshire are in exactly the same position as we are, because it is almost inevitable that some of our allocation is going to be found to be within or directly adjacent to the Forest of Dean. To the national landscape.
I would challenge you on that. In that recently we literally had a meeting to discuss that precise issue and allocate. It was an allocation exercise.
Yes.
That councillors took part in, and we were told quite adamantly that there would be no allocations in the Wye Valley National Landscape as far as the Forest of Dean was concerned.
But we are actively considering allocations in the Tiddenham area.
Not in the Forest of Dean, in the National Landscape.
No, but just immediately adjacent to it, which is what this one is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about developments at the moment. This is an example of a development in the setting of the national landscape. Yes, a couple of 100 metres, if that, tens of metres from the national landscape boundary, but in its setting rather than in. Yeah.
So, are we suggesting that, and Colette's given an eloquent understanding of this, that we have time to put in a fuller response in the November or following the November meeting. And we, at which time we will have more information, particularly from the ecologists on the bats.
Yes, we'll have the full or an updated ecological report that will inform the developer's environmental impact assessment or habitats regulation assessment, and assuming that Monmouthshire County Council do approve their local development plan, it will then be going to Welsh Government to the which then opens up the examination in public in the winter, well, over the winter or next spring, and that's when the next formal time to feed in. So I think if the JAC is minded to, receive a full report on this then, and then make a decision on how we want to proceed, then that obviously gives myself and Catherine as officers the mandate to go forward to the into the examination in public and raise whatever concerns we feel appropriate.
Okay, is everybody happy with that?
Colette, you've got your hand up again.
Yeah, I was just going to say, reiterate really, no final decisions have been made on site allocations, and they will be informed obviously by the evidence base, and that includes all the, as you mentioned, Andrew, helpfully the updated ecological assessments that are underway, and that is going to be subject to further public consultation, and then obviously the independent examination. So there's there is a process there that'll follow through on that.
Okay. In which case, do we all think that the response we've given to this public question is satisfactory?
Yeah.
Because I certainly want the Joint Advisory Committee to make sure that we stand up for the values and the objectives of the national landscape that we're here for. And if we do get developments adjacent or in the setting of the national landscape, then that is detrimental, because certain matters see no boundary there. And the bats, particularly if they're foraging across the border into the national landscape, but roosting near to the development, then that's harmful. Amartya.
Yeah. So I think that some of the ecological assessment can be a very broad term, because right now we're looking at maybe a habitat regulations assessment or a sustainable assessed SRA, SEA that we call. However, one of the other things that we could add, to our own information is what is the impact on the ecosystem services that's been made by this development. And there are many tools available by Environment Agency, by DEFRA, that we could fall back on, and that will give us an informed view as to what exactly is the impact. And it's not just habitat, it's beyond habitat as well. It's water regulation, it is soil quality, and so on.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you for that. Never mind sewage and all the other extraneous things that go with the development, and public pressure on the habitat and on the bats themselves. Okay, I think we've done this one. I'm happy with their response, and we will get a fuller response and more information for the next meeting. Okay, thank you for that. I'd like to move on to the minutes of the previous meeting. For those of you that have read it, is there anything that you deem inaccurate? And if so, let me know. And if there's anything or a matter arising which is not on the agenda, which you would like to bring up, please also let me know. Are you happy that's a relatively good record? Okay, I'll sign that off if necessary. Thank you.
There's one matter arising.
Oh, the membership review, of course, yes. Again, we've had a membership review, as you will have known, and we've got a verbal update from Andrew now to let us know where we are with the numbers.
Yes, basically it's an apology really to the committee that I haven't been able to move forward as fast as I would have liked, or as we all would have liked, I'm sure, on the review. However, we've made some progress with distributing requests for new members and to new organisations, but we still need to go out with an open. There's a number of the seats where we've decided to go for an open public recruitment, and the details of those are still being sort of refined and finalised. We haven't quite managed to get it over the line to publicise them and finalise the process. So apologies, but I'm very grateful for everyone who has turned up, because I was concerned that we've got so many vacancies whether we'd actually be quorate today. So that's a good start. Yes, I'd certainly hope that we've got most of those posts filled over the summer, so that we've got a fresh or some new people in to augment numbers and decisions come November. So yes, the update is we haven't concluded the review and got all the new members in yet, but we certainly hope to intend to by November.
Great, thank you for that. And the hope is that if these hybrid meetings go well, then we'll get a lot more people coming in, because it's less fuel, less cost, less carbon footprint, and you still get to attend and put your questions forward. Okay, moving on from the minutes and the matters arising, the Wye Valley National Landscape Annual Report. Again, over to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so we've attached the report. I'm afraid it's quite a long list of things against our work programme, but I think sometimes it's helpful for members to see the full sort of blow by blow of what we agreed at the beginning of the year and what we've achieved over the year. We're certainly very pleased as a team with what's gone on, and obviously that includes the creation, the development of the Fermio Bro programme on the Welsh side, concluding the 4th year of the FIPL, the Farming and Protected Landscapes funding on the English side. There was a little bit of turnover of staff last year, which created a little bit of hiatus in some projects, but again, we've been able to resolve those and successfully recruit. Yeah, we didn't lose too much momentum as the year went by, and lots of activity and lots of good work in conserving and enhancing the area. So I'm happy to answer any questions. We weren't quite able to get all the figures sort of straight or clarified, simplified, I suppose, probably the best way to say it, for the to include in the report. So we will submit those as sort of final accounts in the next meeting in November. But all the actions are there. So I'm happy to answer any questions now or at any time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Emma.
Regards to, I have two questions, if that's okay. With regards to the invasive species, I was lucky enough to help again this year with the Balsam Bash event, and we are hoping to get a small group together to adopt a section so that we can really attack it. So hopefully when it's attacked in the tributaries, by the time it gets to the river, we'll be already on the case. But I was disappointed to read about the it stated that it was only a 40% decrease in abundance in the areas where you attack the Japanese knotweed, which seems, if you were doing things like, injecting glyphosate, that's it, that only a 40% effectiveness is a bit concerning, and was it actually increasing in other areas? I wonder if you could just drill into the detail on that and what your plans are going forward to attack nasty things like Japanese knotweed. And also, could I have an update on the rather sad collapse of our footpath on Wisham, the Wye Valley Walk footpath? If you could have, I know there were plans to fix it, and then we had the sad collapse. So yeah, an update on that would be wonderful. Diolch.
Thanks. Yes. So, firstly, in terms of the invasive species or the Japanese knotweed, it's one of those interesting conundrums. It's a subjective assessment that the contractors do when they go back to a site, is to list whether they think there's been an increase or a decrease, whatever. So it's a very quick sort of ready reckoner that we ask them to do. So we're also slightly disappointed with that in a sense that yes, we would like to think that it was being more effective. I mean, that's it's not a bad result, but it could be more effective. So two things we want to do is check that methodology. Is it just that the methodology is not accurate enough to, or different members are being, different contractors are, assessing it differently. And secondly, obviously, check the overall programme, that are we being effective enough. The other thing is that the number of sites is always increasing. So I'm not quite sure whether it's actually a statistical error that we've as an average of all the sites sort of thing, that actually, because we keep adding, half a dozen or more sites each year, that's skewing, because so there's a little bit of, it's statistics, isn't it? Is there some anomaly in the background statistics that's distorting it, or is it showing a real problem? And so as the invasive species treatment programme gets going later in the summer, we're looking at all of those issues to make sure to see, yes, how that's, are these reflecting reality, or are they affecting some anomaly in the methodology? Moving on, Wisham, yes, immensely frustrating. We've just put out a brief to have somebody coming back and a contractor to look at that and all the previous good work and progress we had made, and to make an assessment of how we take it forward, if we can. So we'll be able to report back later in the year when we've reviewed it, and obviously talk with Monmouthshire Rights Away as well about that. So we've been in close liaison with them. The best of the bad news is that there is a relatively simple diversion on that section, because you just come out by the sewage works and walk along the road, which isn't ideal, but that exists. That's a very simple diversion. We're actually a bit more concerned at the bit further south, by the monitoring station on the bend there at the bottom end of the showground, where there isn't any option, and if that goes, then really talking major disruption and diversion. So we're also asking the consultant to look at that stretch that bit, because that's actually much more critical if there's a problem on that part of the Wye Valley Walk. So that's the current. So we'll obviously keep you informed on both of those.
Yeah, just need to. No, I don't know if you're aware, but the style where they currently are being diverted up past the waterworks up to the road, the style there is broken. I don't know if you've got plans to fix it, but yeah, it would be good to have it to be kept in the loop as to how that progresses. Obviously, because it does affect my residents, because a lot of them walk into town that way because it's really lovely. Really lovely way of walking in. Yeah.
Thank you. Actually, it's something that we need to look at carefully, because if we have landslips and landslides and they're increasing, they're extremely costly to repair, and I doubt if we have the budget to do that. And if the landslides aren't affecting the highway, there's less of an incentive to actually, fix them on the footpaths. I'm just wondering whether we can actually ask the powers that be to help us with the costs of fixing those landslides, if it's possible to do so, because I think that the one on the A40, which is currently decrease the width of the A40 so that there's only single lane traffic either way, that seems irreparable by the geologists that are concerned. Without a full, you're moving half a hillside to make it, to fix it again. So I think that, and if they're increasing as a result of potentially climate change and extreme weathers, then we really do need to look carefully at how we react to those, and whether we have to sacrifice some of those paths to those landslides, because we will never get the costs paid, the expenses covered by, certainly not by ourselves, but by the authorities. So I'm a little worried about that. And the one that's at the bottom of the racecourse, that's near the start of the Wye Valley Walk, and it's off-putting if you start and you make all your plans and you come down from wherever up north, come down, and then on the first day you're blocked. So we do need to make sure that the signage is and the diversions are well listed, and we need to look at that. And then on the Japanese knotweed, we had Japanese knotweed in St Breville's parish, right on the Tump, which is where the castle is and the church, and we got a private contractor who injected the glyphosate at the right time, and it was 100% successful. If we're only cutting 40%, that means we're losing the battle, because we need to be killing more than are coming back. So that would indicate something above 50%. So we need to look at that carefully. But it's something we need to look at, and maybe look at the contractors. I know that certainly on the Gloucestershire side, the Gloucestershire Highways Authority, when they do invasive weed extermination, whatever you want to call it, they have a very low success rate, and yet there are private contractors living locally that can do a much better job, actually a much cheaper job as well. So maybe we need to look at that a bit more openly.
I'm going to say the report said it was only effective in 40% of the sites, which implies it wasn't effective at all in 60%, and between the lines implies it could have even increased in 60%, which is why I queried it. I would expect it to have some effectiveness, even if not 100% effective, in 100% of the sites. I would have thought it would have had some kind of positive. Yeah. You're using something as potent as poison. You'd expect 100% of the sites to have some kind of effect. But so that's what alarmed me really. Yeah. Mm.
Never mind the fact that the signature of glyphosate is in virtually every brook and stream and river that we have here. Anyway, moving on. Has anybody got any further comments on the report? David?
Yeah, I just want to echo Emma's points about the Wye Valley Walk and what we're doing between Redbrook and Monmouth. For a start, we have Redbrook Bridge, which you mentioned at 1.10. Facilitate future options for Redbrook Bridge. What are they?
Yes, well, when we last looked in depth at Redbrook Bridge, which is nearly 10 years ago, we estimated we needed just under £2 million. So I expect we need at least 5 million now. We've written to Gloucestershire County Council. We have some capital money this year, not of that order of magnitude, but offered that to Gloucestershire County Council to say, is there anything that can be, this money can be used for to move forward the solution there. But as we know with the Wireworks Bridge, these bridge restorations are not cheap. They're major engineering works. But we sort of know what the solution is. I think it's just finding the resources, adequate resources, and yeah, we're talking a couple of million at least to refurbish that bridge. And then, of course, we've got Lidbrook Bridge as well, pretty much similar. Also needs a couple of million being spent on it. So between the Wye Valley Walk sliding and the road sliding into the valley and the bridges all falling apart, I do remember a bridge engineer saying, well, we're surviving on the legacy of Victorian over-engineering. And yes, unfortunately, all those chickens are coming home to roost, in a sense that it's hard maintaining infrastructure in the land where the river sucks.
I think the thing that concerns me about Redbrook Bridge and the Wye Valley Walk, Newham Parish Council for some time have been looking to see whether we can prevent both motorcycles and horse riders using the pedestrian bridge at Redbrook. And we were looking into sort of blocking it in some way, only to find that it isn't a footpath, and therefore you can't stop people using it. And increasingly the concrete is going rotten and the slabs are cracking and falling in. And if we don't do something, if somebody doesn't do something, the Wye Valley Walk is going to cease to exist, because you're going to be stranded at the boat inn. That's not a particularly bad thing, of course, and have no way of crossing the river. Well, we could reinstate the ferry, I suppose. The other thing that concerns me, and I know Emma has raised this many times, is that little section of not footpath between opposite the old Bush Inn until the path goes down onto the riverbank again. That is getting increasingly dangerous, especially as groups are using the Wye Valley Walk for charity events, runs or walks. They don't know the road. We've got fast traffic going right adjacent to that cobbled not path. You know what I mean? And I think we need to push strongly for that to be properly surfaced.
Yes, needless to say, there's a number of issues in a number of places along the Wye Valley Walk, which are, I suppose I'd say, yes, we've got a priority list, and those are all sort of high up on that priority list. Yes, we're working on them slowly, but it does need millions of pounds of investment, which we're obviously trying to source and nudge along, but it's not always the priority for other people, unfortunately. So it's raising that. I mean, when we did some surveys we had a people counter on Redbrook Bridge, there were nearly 100,000 people using that, or 100,000 interactions across that bridge per year. So it's very heavily used by the local community and the pub clients and yes, school children and so on and so forth. So no, aware what a critical piece of infrastructure it is. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I think the report, from my reading of it, is excuse me, is extensive and comprehensive, and actually there's a lot going on here if you dig into it. And I thank Andrew and the team for actually getting on with looking after the national landscape and keeping things going, despite the fact that there is a high staff turnover, and I don't know how we deal with that, and despite the fact that there are decreasing funds going forward from the government. I did have a couple of things which are just minor things, but 03.4, the audit and repair and/or replace overlooking the Y infrastructure and/or design and install new as appropriate. That's one of the actions. And the audit was initiated, the proposal submitted to Swansea University for undergraduate project to complete audit, but no students came forward to deliver the project. So I'm just asking why. Why was that?
Yes, it was a shame. We thought we built up a nice little package for the university. They'd reached out to us, and it was their yes, sort of tourism and environmental management course, I think. And we said, well, we've got all these sites, all this old infrastructure or aging infrastructure from the interpretation boards and things. And we thought, yeah, getting a student to look at them all, go around, check on the condition of them, and yes, and then report back on what needs doing would be quite a nice sort of student project. But yes, it didn't get any traction with them. I mean, there's two things from that. One, it's still a job that we need to do at some point. Again, all those interpretation boards are not getting any younger. So as a task, it still needs to be done. But it's also that thing of interacting with academic institutions is, you know, you can offer as many opportunities as possible, but you don't always get the uptake of them. Although sometimes you do get students coming to us saying, I want to do a project on the river or on the woods or something, and then you know, we can work with them and build up an initiative. We're working with a PhD student at the moment coincidentally from Swansea, who's looking at the river, but from a slightly different perspective, as sort of legalistic perspective over regulation and things like that. But so those opportunities do emerge, but this was a case where we'd taken thought we got a nice sort of project there, but yeah, it just didn't get any students picking up on that.
Okay, it's unfortunate. Maybe we can in the future look at other universities as well. Local universities as well. That's unfortunate. Under youth rangers, I was noted that there's 130 young people engaged in activities, and 60% of those children engaged had special educational needs. I think it's a great programme, the Youth Adventurers, and one new volunteer recruited for young adventurers and trained in outdoor first aid, food hygiene, safeguarding and DBS checked. One existing volunteer DBS checked. I think the more we encourage younger volunteers to come in, the better, because they'll take over from us when we can't do it anymore. And offering careers, offering skills, offering advice and support, I think is brilliant. And, you know, long may that continue. And then there was another one. There was a education resources programme, again bilingual digital resource, Turlin, developed through consultants and workshops with local schools. This isn't happening on the English side, is it? This is teaching Welsh to the...
It was a Welsh Government funded initiative across the 8 designated landscapes on the Welsh side. So, I mean, as an online resource, it's there and available for everyone. So the English in primary schools could make use of it.
Okay.
So yes, it's available online. It's a very impressive series of educational resources. So we haven't actually actively promoted it locally. It's promoted on the Welsh side, but that's a good point. We should be promoting it on the English side as available. Yes.
Yeah, okay. And then on P5.6, the Welsh Government drafted new Sustainable Development Fund guidance for 25-26, which is this current year, with a focus on nature recovery and climate emergencies, necessitating a review of panel members and selecting some replacements. So I've got, what is this being spent on? Is there money on in this one?
The Sustainable Development Fund, we've got the report on that later on under our grants, funds and...
Okay, so the panel members are the ones that...
Is the assessment
assess
panel,
the grant,
yes.
Yeah, okay, great. And then we've got data continues to be gathered and stored in preparation for reviewing the State of the AONB report and production of revised State of the National Landscape report to accompany the management plan. When are we looking at these coming in?
Hopefully November will be coming up. Yes.
Great. Yep. Okay. All right, yeah. And then finally, we've got other investigate opportunities to update heritage tourism and recreation monitoring. Not progressed due to staff turnover and other priorities. I'm hoping that the staff turnover problem is being resolved, as it were. But I don't know how we do that. Is it because we're not paying them enough, or is it because there are so many opportunities elsewhere that they leave as soon as they've hit the ground?
Each one is an individual decision in a sense on why people decide to move on. I don't think we've got a cultural problem that they've been genuine reasons why people have wanted to leave, and it's either career progression or they're moving out of the area and things like that. So I think the team as we've got them now, we've got a really great team, and they're all local or relatively local. So yes, I would hope that we've got a good couple of years of stability, because we have had a little bit of turnover in the last few years. So there's obviously the challenge when people are on aligned to short-term funding, and but most of the staff have got at least 2 years security of funding at the moment. So we're obviously, having come through the spending review, we're waiting for the confirmation of funding for beyond next year, but most of the staff are on relatively stable contracts.
Okay.
So yeah, looking forward to a period of stability.
Yeah, absolutely. That would help with project delivery, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Anybody else on the report? Okay, it's quite extensive. If you do get a chance to have a look at it, it's quite inspiring that the team, the National Landscapes team, are doing so much with relatively few resources, but effectively doing that. Okay, moving on to another great project. This is the National Landscape Woodland Butterfly Assemblage Species Action Plan. Now, we as part of the National Landscape Association, the National Association for AONBs, in order to, following the Colchester Declaration, we said that we'd we try and support 5 different species, bring them back and make sure that they enhance their populations and enhance their habitats so that they come back. And we've done the hedgehog, we've done the noble chafer, and we've done the carder bees. And this one is the woodland butterfly assemblage, which specifically looks at the woodland white and the pearl-bordered fritillaries. And I think it's a brilliant plan, and it's well researched. It's got volunteers clearing rides. It's got young people involved being taught about the importance of keeping these species alive and away from extinction. Do you have any, Andrew? Do you have any other comments on this? Because we're supposed to endorse this, so presumably you've had a look at it.
Yeah, I did. I mean, our species action plans are becoming a key focus of our work, and if you come and visit our office, you'll notice we've put a mural on the side of our storage container with the 5 species on them. Beautiful image, and that reminds us and inspires us every single time we drive in and walk out the door what we're focusing on. And Molly, the Nature Recovery Officer, who's now in post, has really picked up these with a enthusiasm and commitment. So he's working up a fantastic plan of is working up delivery of these fantastic plans. So as Chris, the chair, said, it's a good plan. It's got some really good actions and focus in it. So we're looking forward to hopefully you endorsing it and us getting on with delivering it, and then we'll get on to probably the most difficult one at the moment, which is the final one, is the one on ranunculus, on water crowfoot, but we'll probably come on to that a bit more later in the when I do the river update.
Okay, is everybody happy to endorse this one? Yep, great. Can I just ask you, if you have time, go in and have a look and see if you can find and see a woodland white. They're fantastic butterflies. They've got a particular way of flying which separates them from every other white butterfly. And they are endangered. They are specifically endangered. I think what comes out of this, 2 things come out of this report for me. And believe me, in my career has been all about looking after species and endangered species, is that the connectivity is crucial, because you may have fragments of populations in certain woodlands, but if they don't mix, they eventually do die out. And so it's that connectivity, and by doing it for the butterfly, you're doing it for a host of other creatures and plants as well that need to migrate from one place to another, particularly with a warming planet. But the other one is that the role of the Wye Valley National Landscape Team should be is to enthuse the general public to take part in surveying and providing records of butterfly sightings. And it's in the connecting with nature that the rewards come. It's not the contact as much as the connecting, which means not just hearing a bird song, but listening to it, and not just seeing a butterfly, but actually observing what it does. And hopefully, if we get more connections, we may keep this butterfly with us for many decades to come. So I think we have endorsed it, but it's a good one to focus on, particularly with the woodlands that we have in the national landscape. Emma.
Oh. Yeah. So I was just going to ask about muntjac. Is there anything? Because I noted it is mentioned in this report regarding its effect on this butterfly. Who'd have thought that they could affect butterflies? Do you know if anything's been done to tackle the muntjac populations within the Forest of Dean?
I mean, certainly muntjac, are culled along with other deer. In fact, I think I'm right in saying they're the only species of deer that don't have a closed season, so you can shoot them all year round, whereas all the others are, because it's effectively an invasive species, muntjac. And it's actually the best to eat. It's the tastiest and the sort of the leanest of all the venison. So yes, it is actively culled. I mean, they're more difficult to shoot because they're smaller and they get into the undergrowth, faster and harder to see and everything. But they're actively culled by all the stalkers. So they're controlled where they can be, but they have become pretty endemic in the landscape. So it's and in a sense, as an invasive species, it's quite hard to control them anymore. But they're definitely on the list of species being controlled, and all the stalkers will certainly shoot them when they see them. Matthew Price.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew.
Sorry, Matthew.
Yeah, thank you. I hope I'm not going to make myself too unpopular here.
Can you speak closer to the microphone, please?
Yeah, sure. I'll speak up and I'll speak a bit closer. So I don't want rotten fruit thrown at me for what I'm about to say, but I actually actively manage the muntjac in our part of the world, and my take on it is that the Forestry Commission probably aren't pulling their weight. You're absolutely right, Andrew. Muntjac are challenging and difficult. I think it'd be really interesting to ask the Forestry Commission, because it is open access information, just for what their cull numbers are, what they've actually achieved in the last year. I personally have shot over 100 muntjac on one farm in the last 12 months. And I've got a funny feeling I've shot an awful lot more than the local Forestry Commission ranger has, because they come under the hard work category. And I think some pressure could be put on the Commission to actually up their game on muntjac, because they're probably not getting as much grief as they would be maybe to do with wild boar and maybe the larger species of deer that they'll be getting earache from neighbouring landowners. I think it's really obvious the impact muntjac are having on the habitat in terms of the loss of that understory. I think it's really, really incumbent upon landowners, including the Forestry Commission, to do their bit there. So, Andrew, if you could ask the FC their numbers, it'd be really interesting for our next meeting to see whether they represent probably the numbers of muntjac that we actually have got in the area, which is a lot.
Yeah, I'm certainly happy to do that.
Thanks. And yeah, you're right. They don't have a closed season, but that's partly because they're so prolific at breeding. They have no fixed breeding season. So a muntjac doe will breed 3 times in every 2 years, which is why, and they'll breed all year round. So there's no point in a closed season.
Thank you, Matthew. And you mentioned that they clear the understory, and that's what affects the insects. That's why all our insectivorous birds are going extinct. And in the forest alone, we've lost nightingales, lost pied flycatchers, spotted flycatchers, wood warblers, and the list goes on.
Yeah, and also the nightjar is also because the nest, the height at which a nightjar nests at is the height that a muntjac will browse to.
Yeah.
So they just literally remove the habitat as well as the food source.
Yeah. Yeah. So looking after the woodlot white will involve looking after the deer or managing the deer. Amartya.
This is just a suggestion. I'm not an ecologist, and I also don't know what best way to control a species that is so prolific. Perhaps protect patches of understory with some kind of fencing, rather than, like we can protect a tree by these kind of fencing, but generally I don't see people protecting patches of understory, and I don't know if that's a solution, because the deer is going to be everywhere, but at least we can and if you're trying to control it across the landscape, it's difficult. At least if there are safe havens for these insects, it's better than nothing.
Absolutely. It is quite difficult to fence out deer because you need to have a high enough fence to stop them jumping over, but at the same time you need to have a close weave so that the muntjacs and the Sitka deer can't get through because they're quite small and they can get through quite small spaces. But and the other one is a cultural thing that certainly in the Forest of Dean we don't like fencing off the forest, although the Forestry Commission do fence off new plantations because of that reason, that the trees get, the buds of the trees get eaten.
Yeah, I just want to mention.
Yep. Okay, hold on. Amartya?
Yeah, I just want to mention, I know that if fencing off entire areas is difficult and it can come across as impeding access, but what about fencing smaller patches within? That's slightly more doable, and I think it can be controlled.
Sure. Okay, we can look at that. Who else was? Melanie.
Yeah, hi. I was just wondering about the recording of sightings of butterflies, having met this morning a woodwhite and a pearl-billed trotili where I was walking, and it says to look at your local environmental records, and then there are lots of references about recording. So are we pulling off from national records some local information which goes into that report, and where is the best place for people locally in the A, O and B area to actually log the sightings? That's a reasonable question.
Yes, suddenly find myself out of my depth on. I will get back to Molly and confirm on that. I mean, a lot of the time now, I think is it iRecorder? I'm trying to remember what the there's very good apps that you can use now to record on, which tends to then go through to the biological record centres, because the danger is certainly historically, people have collected these reports on paper and then sent them through to the biological record centre, and then they tend to sit in a file and don't get digitised and updated and publicly accessible for several years, and then suddenly the up-to-date records in the biological record centre is several years out of date. But using the apps and things like that is obviously almost instantaneous or much quicker digitising stuff. So I'll check and confirm on that. But yes, obviously wherever possible, we're trying to use the most up-to-date records, but accept that sometimes those records aren't, they will be a year or two out of date, sort of thing.
Thanks, Andrew.
Emma?
Could you share that with us all? So, because if you want us to try to reach the profile of this butterfly with that communities, it would help if you can say, and if you see one, yeah, it would help if we know what your preferred methods are. Jill?
Yeah, it's usually to send them to the Gloucestershire or the local centre for environmental records, as they collate all the data, and they can then analyse it and look at trends as well. There are two actual recording initiatives. The one is to do your ordinary garden butterfly survey, which is providing a massive information. And then the other one is to do your butterfly transects, which butterfly conservation members have been doing for 50, 60 years, which is you have a particular route and a particular length, and you record the butterflies you see, and you do it on a fortnightly basis throughout the season. And that can sometimes give a benchmark for what is there, how frequent it's seen. So that's something to consider. And there is an app which, and if you're going out, use the app. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've endorsed that one. Moving on to the next one, which is the Farming and Protected Landscapes and the Fermio Bro Sustainable Development Fund, and Herefordshire Community Foundation, HCF Wye Valley National Landscape Fund. Yeah, with a lot of words there. We need to welcome new members to the local assessment panel and endorse the recent allocation of FIPL and SDF grants. Andrew.
Yes, there's a lot of words because there's a lot of different pots of funding doing a lot of, distributing a lot of money to a lot of people, which is all good. FIPL, Farming and Protected Landscapes, was extended for another year, which was fantastic. So we're now in the 5th year of FIPL. Anna Stankovic, our former FIPL officer, left at the end of the financial year, partly because at the time she made the decision, we didn't know whether the FIPL funding was extending, so that was a classic case of good member of staff leaving because the continuation of funding wasn't secured. But I'm very glad to say we've successfully recruited and filled the post, and we've got Richie Alford now in post, who's really hit the ground running. We had the first panel meeting a few weeks ago and have already allocated £62,000 of funding on various farming grants. The assessment panel hasn't changed significantly. I don't think, no, it didn't even put the assessment panel in because they haven't changed since previous years. Then the Sustainable Development Fund, we reported previously, the criteria has shifted slightly this year, so that necessitated the change of panel, but also the new panel met a couple of weeks ago, and again we've allocated over half of the funding available now. We've got 95,000, sort of allocated 46,000, and the new panels listed on page 65. So have David Price from NFU Wales, who actually has stood down as a JAC member after many good years of service. So we need to check whether he's staying on or whether his replacement on the JAC takes over. Charles Eames from Ace Monmouth, Gemma Bodo from Gwent Wildlife Trust, Kate Stinchcombe from Monmouthshire County Council, and Councillor Bryn from Monmouthshire. So they make up the new SDF panel, so that's fantastic. And then the new Fermio Bro programme has started, which is similar to the Farming and Protected Landscapes programme, but on the Welsh side. We've recruited a new officer, Chris Knight, who's local to the Wye Valley, lives in Lanishan, worked previously he's been at Coleg Gwent at Usk campus as a lecturer there for many years, but was also worked for Farming Connect during the foot and mouth crisis, whatever that was, 20 plus years ago. And so he knows a lot of the landowners as well, which is really great. He's only just started, but he's again hitting the ground running. So that's a sort of quick update on where we are. The Herefordshire Community Foundation Fund, we've still sort of kept that closed while we're waiting for the funds to grow, because it's an endowment fund, and looking to other ways to augment that. But yes, so that's the update on those 4 different grant pots and processes and panel members. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. I think all of these, but particularly the farming and protected landscapes, is a brilliant project. It's the one that engages with land managers, farmers, and it's there that we'll get the best carbon reduction and biodiversity enhancement results. It's dealing literally with the farmers and the land managers themselves. And so this has greater value than just in the national landscape, actually, because the trends with farmers, they talk to their neighbours, but also they talk to their friends wider afield. And when these work, as examples of good practice, they are spread around quite widely. So I'm really glad that we've got that. What I would say, just one of the questions is that I know the HCF National Landscape Fund is restricted, well, it's closed now, but how much actual interest are we making on 67,000?
Well, it's all managed through the Herefordshire Community Foundation, but yes, it's I can't remember, it's 3 or 4%. So it's not huge, and it's not it's a relatively modest amount. And obviously they also take out the management fees and things like that. So we need to look at ways to augment that fund, solicit donations to it to build up the overall pot. But I must admit, while we set that up 12 or so years ago, when we didn't have many other funding grants apart from the Sustainable Development Fund. Now, as demonstrated, we're managing several other pots and capital funding pots from Welsh Government and DEFRA. So it's sort of less of a priority at the moment, which is why we're quite happy to park it and let that pot grow, because we've got tens or hundreds of thousands of pounds of direct grant aid that we're administering as well. But if we could solicit any nice donations into the Herefordshire Community Foundation, then that if somebody says, oh, we want to make a donation to the AONB or the National Landscape, that's where we usually direct it. But we want some juicy legacy that we can put in there, and then we might be able to fund some bridge repair work out of it or something. So anyone got any elderly aunts that are they don't know what to do with all their money, then we can point them towards this.
Could you name the bridge after them, though? That might...
Yes.
There are many people there are many organisations of which I've been a member or a founder that have a legacy strategy where they do literally leave the leaflets in GP surgeries and not necessarily hospitals, but in locations where people might consider leaving part of their estate to the Wye Valley National Landscape, possibly because it's looking after the place for future generations. So but you need to market that. You need to actually actively or proactively put those messages out there so that they are read and they are taken into account. So maybe we need to do more of that.
Yeah,
I think. Okay, so presumably we're happy with the report on those 4 funds. We've then got the National Landscape Partnership Annual Study Tour. I wasn't on the last one, but I've been on the ones previously, and they are superb. They are superb. Actually, if places are limited, then there's quite there aren't ticket touts, but certainly there is a rush to get the places. So where are we going this time? We don't know yet.
No, we're going to focus on the middle part of the national landscape, so sort of between, broadly between Monmouth and Ross. and focus on, we've got the new National Grid Landscape Enhancement Initiative project starting in there, and there's always other things, you know, we're discussing whether we go down to somewhere like Kern Bridge and have a look at canoeing, recreation, and river issues. We could go to Goodrich Castle, always got a nice cafe there, and but you know, look at the English heritage site and management of the castle. But there's several projects on the ground that we've got going in that area, or just starting with the Landscape Enhancement Initiative. We were north of Ross last year looking at FIPL projects, so we don't need to spend too much time looking at sort of FIPL type projects, but there may be one or two of those that come in. And of course, we may find there's a partner that's got a site or an issue that we want to cover as well. So we're just drawing that up. And then it comes down to the logistics of where do we park everyone, where can we get the minibuses to, or where don't we want to take the minibus to, where's a good place for lunch, and a and a cafe or tea stop as well, sort of thing. So we will, if members are happy with the that overall principle and that date, then we will crack on with finalising and organising it. And we'll put the call out to members over the next couple of weeks, and of course the town, parish and community councils and other partners, and get that planned up for late September.
Brilliant. And for those who haven't been, it's a great lunch, but it's also a brilliant opportunity to actually network and talk to your fellow members who come from the other parts of the national landscape, just to see what's going on there, what's going on where you are, and just to develop this camaraderie that we're all in this together, and we all enjoy and being informed about what we're looking after. Okay, so we'll look forward to the details in that. And then we've got...
Chris,
sorry, David. Yeah.
Could I just ask Andrew, how are you going to distribute the details?
It'll be email, but we will obviously, yes, we'll email all of you as members, and then we have a list of all the clerks of the town, parish and community councils, so we'll email all of them, hopefully in good time before everyone goes to sleep over the summer, and because I appreciate often the town, parish and community councils don't meet for sometimes 6 weeks or so over the summer, so we'll try and get them out sort of mid-July, and hope they get distributed around. But yes, if people are members of the community councils, town, parish councils, then do hassle your chair or your clerk over, in 3 or 4 weeks' time, that they hopefully will have got the invitation out to them, or through the expressions of interest, and then you can book your places through them if you haven't heard directly from us, and recommend your fellow colleagues, fellow councillors to book on as well. But yeah, we usually have pretty good representation, but it's yes, as Chris said, we like to think we lay on a good day for everyone, and that it's useful and interesting.
Absolutely. Grab a ticket if there's one coming available to you. Okay, thank you for that. We've got the River Wye update. I'm really glad we've got this as an agenda item on each meeting, because it is at the heart of the national landscape. And if, as some authors are suggesting, the river itself is alive and may need legal protection as an individual would get, then of course we've got some new initiatives coming forward which might help with looking after the Wye well into the future. But what this does, and as we all know, there are a plethora of organisations and authorities and volunteer groups that are all trying to improve the water quality of the River Wye and do their bit. And what this does is it gets them all to, it collates all that information, that disparate, enthusiasm, and it puts it into a form, into a short report, which is really useful, and we can take it on from there. But I also note that where we can, first of all, the national landscape only contributes 8% of the catchment of the Wye. So we are a small player, as it were. However, the river runs through us, and it does come from somewhere. And if we want our river, where it comes through our national landscape, to be as clean as it can be, then we do need to put pressure on those upstream and possibly downstream, but certainly upstream. And so I think that, we bear that in mind, but I'm really glad that we are actually on many of the groups, the catchment groups, the nutrient neutrality boards, and we're there, and we're represented there, and we can add our bit as well as we can. So I think it's a great report. I'll ask Andrew to just present it, but it's really just an update for members on the latest activities to help restore the River Wye.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's a slightly surreal process at the moment because there's a lot going on behind the scenes, but and a lot of the partners and stakeholders in the Wye are working hard to progress things, although I don't know, because I'm so intimately involved in, the Wye Catchment Partnership and other groups. I'm aware of how much is going on, but I can appreciate some people might look and think that things are a bit more glacial. Which is part of the reason why I think these reports are useful, because it pulls together all the action that is happening. We're waiting. There's £1 million from government following the ministerial meetings so end of last year and earlier this year. We're just waiting to get that refined as to what the research brief is going to be for that and how to take that forward. But that's going to be managed very much by DEFRA, but with co-produced by local stakeholders. So we're involved and engaged in that process. I mentioned about the ranunculus and the anecdotal evidence that is actually making a little bit of a comeback now, and the Wye Alliance, so the citizen science groupings, the Friends of the River Wye, they've launched now a big ranunculus watch, so citizen science project or campaign to gather evidence on how the ranunculus is doing. We're also just in the process of investigating whether we can do a drone survey, commission a drone survey, and use a drone flight of the river to evaluate the presence and the abundance of ranunculus. So there's a number of things like that going on. There's just been an announcement from DEFRA about the amendments to the farming rules for water. So there's a definite and a stated ambition of DEFRA and the DEFRA ministers to work to tighten up, consolidate the regulation and effective management of farming when it comes to water and water management. Yes, and we're also working with the Severn Vale catchment, so the forest, the part of the Forest of Dean that drains into the Severn, collaborating now with them over drawing up a sort of strategy and action plan for the rivers and tributaries in the Forest of Dean that flow into the Wye as well, and so working with them on a plan, and that's actually going to be really useful for us in the national landscape, because we've been thinking about taking forward sort of projects or initiatives on the tributaries in the national landscape, or that flow into the Wye in the national landscape. And so this sort of template that's been developed by the Severn Vale catchment, and sitting on the working group that's developing that, we'll see whether there's some useful methodologies in what they've used that we can then apply to the rest of the national landscape, and possibly, you know, further upstream in the Wye catchment. So I think those are sort of the main things to say, and of course, yeah, we're cracking on with FIPL and Fermio Bro and things, and doing what we can in the national landscape in terms of water management and land use, but obviously there are other partners working upstream, particularly the Wye and Usk Foundation and Farm Herefordshire, Herefordshire Rural Hub, on work elsewhere in the catchment and upstream. I think that's all I need to say now. I mean, I don't know, Martin, whether want anything to add, but
okay, anybody else? Okay, I've got 2 points to raise. First of all, in the Herefordshire local plan, the inclusion of animal byproducts as controlled waste was heard by a judge and deemed to be sound. And so that means that chicken poo has now got to, certainly in Herefordshire, has now to be regarded as a controlled waste, which has stricter means to protect the environment. Whether these are the same as the farming rules for water, I don't know, but Martin might do. And I'm suggesting, certainly for Gloucestershire, we are working up to have that put into our waste plan, a waste and minerals plan, and I'm not sure about Monmouthshire. But this ruling is an example of case law, where case law can actually set the standard for how we fertilise our soils, but also how we reduce the pollution into the rivers. Martin.
Yes, and we're an arm's length body of DEFRA, being the Environment Agency, so I can't talk about the specific detail, but I think it might be helpful just to add some context. So the Herefordshire Council case was the NFU v Herefordshire Council, related to really the discard test, what is a waste and what isn't. Up until now, most animal byproducts are what we call excluded, so effectively then they're not regulated in the same way you would expect other wastes. Now, where we're at the moment is, firstly, we're waiting for clarity around what that means, because it isn't just specific to Herefordshire. It could have far-reaching changes and implications in terms of a whole sector, particularly around what animal byproducts are waste and what isn't. Certainly, what we would always say is that in terms of where you've got organic manures, where they're being applied in excess crop need, if you look at what the definition of waste covers, it talks about certainty of use. So therefore, have you got certainty of use if you're applying it incorrectly? And I know in Wales, they've adopted that for some time. So in summary, we're waiting to see what that direction is, whether the wide-ranging rules that apply to all waste will apply to animal byproducts, or whether there'll be some clarity around what that bit in between may look like. So that's the first one. Now, the second one, which is the farming rules for water, which is the control of pollution regulations, that has got a proper legislative name. But farming rules of water is essentially the regulations that, or one of the regulations we use in terms of looking at how farmers apply nutrients to land and the land practice. Now, when those regulations were first introduced, a separate guidance document came with them, which is within the legislation that can happen, and it's what we call the Secretary of State's guidance. So you've got the legislation, and then you've got the Secretary of State's guidance. Now, what the Secretary of State's guidance said is that there should be a deemed not to enforce. Now, what has changed is that reference has been removed. So the legislation hasn't changed. It's the Secretary of State's guidance that has changed. Now, really, when we're still looking at the regulations minus the not to enforce, the Environment Agency take an advice-led regulatory approach. We do take enforcement where appropriate, but also the need really overarching the regulations is all about good agronomic need. So what we're saying there is if you're applying nutrients, it should be based upon what the crops need, and it should be applied at the right time. So when you look at autumn applications where you apply pre-winter, is that appropriate for your crop? And it can be, but it cannot be. So that's where we are at the moment in that space. We're waiting again, hopefully, to roll out a bit wider guidance from our national team. Mainly, we're getting requests, from the farming community, from some of the organisations Andrew referenced already. Locally, we're the area team, so we don't get involved with the sort of detail around it, where we wait for people in our national team to tell us the implications, and we can share it wider. So two separate changes there, but both potential changes, but we're just waiting to firm up what those may be in terms of the extent of that.
Great. Thank you for that. Thank you for that context. I'm glad it's actually stimulated some changes in the legislation, or an omission, which might mean that just the occasional random enforcement might do it. A wealth of goodness.
Yeah, and it's also fair to comment, there was an announcement last week, the government are providing additional funding to the Environment Agency, firstly to increase our number of farm inspections, which have gone up considerably over the last 3 to 4 years, but also additional enforcement resource that comes with it.
Great. I know that those that will have read the report will have noticed that we cover quite a lot of things here, and the changing legality and the changing enforcement is one of the things that we're particularly keen on, but also that we're doing more research on phosphate in water, because when we first started, there were these broad brushstroke sort of claims that 70% of the results of the death of the Y, as it were due to phosphates from agricultural runoff, and 30% was due to sewage. And now that we've got research, robust research going on, it seems as though those figures might change quite widely. So obviously we want an evidence-led approach to how we save the Y, and we are, and these organisations and this research is going on. But I would say that this research is only going on because of the popular protest at the state of the Y and the loss of the salmon and many of the other fish, and the loss of the ranunculus as well. So it's a dual approach which is producing results now, and hopefully the results will become clear fairly soon so that we can act on them. And the final one is that recently I've been talking to Steve Roberts from the Environment Agency, Steve Brown, sorry, from the Environment Agency, regarding the state of the aquifers underneath certainly the national landscape, but particularly underneath the Forest of Dean. And as we are possibly likely to enter our third heat wave, and as we all know, the ground is parched, licenses will be withdrawn to abstract water, particularly from the River Wye. So the idea is that the main reason for having a licensed abstraction is so that you can principally maintain the River Wye at a level where it can survive, as it were. If the flow rate goes down and the volume goes down, then of course it heats up even more, and then it's prone to algal blooms and the toxicity which we know that creates. So we are in a particular moment at the moment where the river is okay. It's not very low. Other rivers that I've seen recently are literally on dry, and I just hope that those abstraction licenses will be monitored and pulled at the right moment. So there is a lot going on, and the EA are rightly so on top of this, but it is something that we need to be aware of, because we can't, as these heat waves and droughts become more frequent, then it becomes more difficult to look after the river. Okay. Anybody else, any comments on that? Have a read, look at the links. You'll be quite pleased at the amount of work that everybody is contributing to this. Right, we then got national updates from the Technical Officers Working Party report. Can I give that over to you?
Yeah, I know there's a lot going on, and the chairman mentioned earlier the case about housing development elsewhere in the national landscapes, and unfortunately, yes. So, Campaign for National Parks had been pushing on a judicial review of housing development application in the High Weald. I haven't heard the full outcome of that, although I did hear that the Secretary of State had turned that down. Not that the judicial review, rather than the High Court had turned down the judicial review, but I will get greater clarification on that, I'm sure, in the next couple of days, because we're off. I'm going straight from this meeting down to Winchester to join the National Landscapes Annual Conference. So I'm sure we'll get all the updates on the latest situation in terms of legislation and the how the new duty is bedding in England, as well as what we're doing on the Welsh side to mitigate, in a sense, the fact that we haven't got that enhanced strengthened duty. And again, along with that, we hosted the Trydydd Cymru Landscapes Wales seminar back in the end of April, beginning of May. Very, very successful event. Several people from the Welsh National Parks and National Landscapes said, oh, we went to another conference down in Pembrokeshire, and one was in, I can't remember, on Anglesey and something, and they said, but it wasn't as nice as being in the Wye Valley. Because Caerleon, for those of you who know it, is a spectacular location, and we had spectacular weather, and all the arrangements went well, so everyone had a wonderful time in the Wye Valley, which is great. Very pleased with that. And yeah, we had the ministerial launch of the Family Bro programme as part of that event. The other thing is the DEFRA call for evidence on looking at the sort of green finance, how to get the big business sector involved in funding more environmental work. Again, I'm sure we'll be talking about that over the next few days at the conference, and we'll be putting what evidence we can gather to that in response to that call for evidence. Meanwhile, just updating on the spending review a couple of weeks back, that DEFRA did receive a cut. It wasn't as bad as some might have feared, but it obviously is a cut, and that the implications of that is still working through, yes, and so we're waiting to hear how that will impact funding going forward. I think that's probably everything I want to highlight, but happy to answer questions, but I might be even better informed by Friday, so may want to feedback then. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. Anybody? No? So we take note of that, and we give Andrew good stead in shouting for the Wye Valley, and hopefully getting some of the billions that are being sent out, well, are supposed to be sent our way to look after farming in the countryside. There are some big figures here, by the way, but it will, in the final analysis, it'll be how much has been actioned and whether it's been successful or not. Okay, thank you for that. Then we've got Dark Skies, again a report from the Landscape Partnership, the National Landscape. For those of you who are aware, Dark Skies is a big thing in Herefordshire, and it's two sides of the coin actually. Dark Skies is to enable people to look at the Milky Way, and 70% of us had never seen the Milky Way apparently, and 30% have never seen the stars because they live in cities where the light pollution is avoiding that. So the Dark Skies is there to enthuse and inspire people about the greater cosmos, but also the other side of the coin is to reduce light pollution and light waste. And there is a lot of light pollution. And in the Wye Valley, once upon a time, if my colleagues who are now long gone said to me when I first came to the Wye Valley, they said there's a gentleman's agreement between both sides of the Wye Valley that you don't put up lights and development which will spoil the view from the other side. And so if both sides kept to that agreement, you'd still have a wooded valley. But unfortunately, we do have cases where some of the lights are blinding. And of course, the damage they do to insects and bats is phenomenal. So the Dark Skies is a good project, and it's a good position statement that we've developed, isn't it? So Andrew, it's your report.
Yeah, it's just really to, again, a bit like the Rivers reports, to pull together the latest status on Dark Skies work. As the Chair said, it's there are a number of initiatives and levels of interest across the national landscape, and I'm very glad this is picking up momentum, and we've been acutely aware that some other national parks and national landscapes across England and Wales have been doing more work on this. And there's been on the Welsh side a Wales-wide project that we've been involved in that is generating some really good outputs now, and it's influenced this paper that was adopted by Welsh Government on planning guidance, and out of that as well, there's been this seminar on what makes a good external lighting plan, and which again Catherine Laidlaw, our planning officer, attended, and we've had some surveys of light pollution. A small amount of 2 sites retrofitted with better Dark Skies compliant lighting, and we're hoping to that project has got another 2 years of funding, so we're hoping to ramp up the work on the Welsh side. That complements the work that's going on in Herefordshire, and while of course we can't spend Welsh money in Herefordshire, we can share all the energy and good practice and information, and work out what funding we have on the English side to promote this and support Yolandi and the Dark Skies project in Herefordshire. So a lot of good work going on, and yeah, we'll keep you informed as it progresses. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Ultimately, it needs to get into the local plans and the policies of the local authorities so that they can actually enforce it and design out light pollution. And that's where I think some of us all are as we work those policies up as we're reviewing our local plans. Emma.
Thank you. I know there's a lot of good guidance now for good practice for new developments or extensions and such as to ensure that going forward that lighting is better considered. What are you doing to target housing within the AONB that is, we can't insist that people retrofit the lighting, but what are you doing to raise awareness of poor lighting choices that people may not be aware that they're doing? I'm just thinking of in Wisham, looking at the Cymru, there's quite a lot of light pollution up there. Obviously, people may not be maybe totally unaware how much light pollution that they're causing. What are you doing to target maybe areas that could be better lit?
Yeah, it is a tricky one because obviously you're sort of going up to people and telling them, or potentially going up to them and telling them that what they've done in their property is not, is not nice, and people don't like being told that. But as I said, we had a survey done a year or 18 months ago when there were some consultants employed through this, lighting consultants employed through this project, that they drove around at night and took photos and put a report together of a number of places and properties where they, in their opinion, they thought, oh yes, that you could make an improvement on that lighting. And most of it it wasn't private residences, it was more businesses and farms and things like that. So they then did follow up some of that. We didn't have a huge amount of money, which is why we ended up going for the Llandogo Village Hall and Trelloc Primary School to retrofit. But you're right, there's the next step is just getting the messaging out more to make people think about it, and then some people may respond. It would be lovely to run a grant scheme where we'd say, well, we can just fund, the retrofitting, and to a certain extent we could do that through the Sustainable Development Fund. But it's making people aware that that's what we're able to fund. But then you also need to have electricians trained up who can, happy to retrofit, and a good source of the right sort of lighting, because actually dark sky compliant lighting is still quite rare. It's very easy to get a big LED spotlight that you can slap on the side of the barn or garage or something on a PIR that lights up huge amounts of unnecessary areas. It's much easier to get that than advice and a type of lighting that is much less damaging to light pollution. So it's about getting the information, but also having that supply chain of electricians and lighting installations that people can buy and know about. So we're at the early stages of getting all of that together.
But in some instances, you will be saving them money, of course, because they won't be lighting up half of Monmouthshire just so they can see to walk down their drive, So even if you could, as a grant, could offer them free advice, that might be the first step, even if you're not actually offering light.
Yes.
Or a way of accessing the lights, Thank you.
Yeah. bottle-lets.
Colette?
Thank you. Just to pick up on that, Andrew, as you know, you made reference to the Welsh Government's guidance, the good practice guidance, planning for the conservation and enhancement of dark skies in Wales, which is a really brilliant document, I have to say, and provides an excellent opportunity really for all bodies to be able to adopt as a document. And picking up on your point, Emma, about you know, trying to get that information out there and across. I think Welsh Government have indicated, together with NRW, have been the sort of partnership that have been working together to deliver this, that they're keen to try and put together like an easy read, some leaflets, pamphlets that can be targeted towards communities and others as well. So there may be an opportunity where we could potentially, you know, work collaboratively really in any sort of funding opportunities together to actually get those messages across. I think the sort of retrospective opportunities, I think there are those opportunities that we're able to pick up on as well, and that's some of those are reflected in that guidance document. So lots of positive things that have started to come forward, and I know lots of organisations are trying to, you know, local authorities and you know, Wye Valley and others are trying to sort of get those policies in place. So really good stuff coming forward. I know the Landscape Institute have recently been carrying out a series of, together with, in combination with Welsh Government and NRW, some peer-to-peer sort of reviews to help give some of that information and education and awareness raising at that level. And I believe the intention is to try and filter that to communities beyond that. So yeah, lots of good stuff coming forward.
Thank you. Actually, the link isn't here, but if you look on the light maps, they like heat maps, and they give an idea of how much light is being emitted. And you go across the country and you can actually focus in down to, I think it's a kilometre square or less than that. And you can see, if you travel up the national landscape of the Wye Valley, that there are little villages which just about stay dark, and other villages which just about become a sort of a light point, a heat point. And then you've got Monmouth, and then you've got Ross and Wye, and they really stand out. But in between, and it's like a scar, because outside of the national landscape, of course, you've got much bigger conurbations. And it's quite interesting to see that we're already halfway there. You know, if we could just get that cultural shift whereby householders as well as businesses do black out their windows and make sure that their external lights, if needed, are downlighters or whatever, then we can make a big difference. So I'd just in a spare moment, if you've got it, look on light maps and look for the UK, and then use the zoom function to see where you are and how dark it is. Okay, that was an update. Moving on, we've now got the Partner and National Landscape Team progress reports and updates. We're doing okay. We need to move on a bit.
Yes, I'm not going to say much about this. I mean, hopefully you've all got the reports. In a sense, skimming over it doesn't do justice to the amount of work that's reflected here by the team, but there's a huge amount going on, and it's very impressive. And I think the one thing I'll highlight here is that Ruth Waycott, our information officer, is leading walks down the whole length of the Wye Valley Walk this year as part of the 50th anniversary of the Wye Valley Walk. So I think they've just got halfway, so just got to Hereford. So over the next few weeks and months, we'll continue on down the Wye Valley and actually get into the national landscape, because we've been walking from Plynlimmon all the way down. So that's a huge undertaking in itself, in a sense, but fantastic work. Lots of other fantastic work in there. Like I said, I won't dwell on it, but it's all in the report, and we threw in several pictures as well of what's going on. So yes, and last two things. Firstly, I've put in there about passing of Phil Cutter. Some of you may remember him as well. He was JAC chair for a number of years, and also prior to that chaired our overlooking the Wye Landscape Partnership Scheme, and was always very witty and humorous, but also a very strict chair. So yes, I attended his funeral on behalf of the committee. So yes, just recognise and remember him with great fondness. And then finally, on the Biosphere Reserve and the Forest of Dean, just a couple of information sheets there, and for members to acknowledge. And I don't know, Chair, whether you want to just update where the District Council is with those proposals.
Okay. Some of you may have heard the word biosphere. Some of you may have seen it in the media. It's an opportunity for the Forest of Dean district to be designated as a UNESCO biosphere, with all that goes with it. And it's not a land grab or anything. It's almost like a cultural umbrella which enhances populations of wildlife, but also champions sustainable development, true sustainable development. And it's for people and wildlife, as it were. And its main aim is to reconnect people with the nature that supports them. There are 7 biospheres around the country, and there are about 180 or so around the world, and they do make money. They do look after the local economy. They do protect species. They do a wide range of educational activities to teach the stewards of the future. And there's an opportunity for the Forest of Dean District Council to put in an application or nomination form to have, as I said, the district designated as a biosphere reserve under UNESCO. And to do so, we need partners. We need those that are committed to the principles of the biosphere, which are easy to read. You can look at this, and to support it as well, potentially financially if the funds were that way inclined, or at least to share resources and expertise so that you're not duplicating things and you're not leaving things out. The nomination papers have to be in by September 26, and they are quite daunting. The application forms are huge, but they do need the residents particularly to be informed and to be okay with it, because although it doesn't have any statutory functions, it has an ability to influence where things go and where things shouldn't go. So the proposal to go for it was put to the Forest of Dean District Council about 6 weeks ago, and the result was a unanimous support, a unanimous decision by all the councillors, cross-party, to support this. It's also, with local government reorganisation on the horizon, it's a form of legacy that we think the Forest of Dean could maintain its identity going through that reorganisation and look after what we call a special place for nature, a stronghold for nature. The Wye Valley National Landscape will act as a buffer zone. There are 3 zones: core, buffer and transition or sustainable zone. And because it's already practicing much of what a biosphere would do in looking after people and place and reconnecting them, it would be a buffer to the biosphere and to the core zones, which generally are looking at bats and the SACs, the special areas of conservation, and the SSSIs, which involve bats and woodland as well, because those are our specialities, as it were. So it's, I mean, had I been able to, I would have put a proposal for you to vote on. But I think what would be helpful is if you could write a letter of endorsement, and I'm asking you whether that would be possible or whether you need more time to look at what's being presented, and maybe in the November meeting agree to support the biosphere, both in principle and possibly sharing experiences and sharing resources as well where appropriate. Does that sound okay if we go for the November one? I would have liked to have done it now, but I think there isn't enough information for you to have read and made a decision on. So I'd like to make a more formal proposal that will go on the agenda for November. And that doesn't mean that any other places can't apply for themselves. I mean, the ultimate biosphere, of course, is the planet, living planet that we live on, and there isn't any other. So with biospheres, it's similar to that. It's a recognition that biodiversity is on a downward trajectory, and it's some way of trying to rebuild that connection, that old connection that we had with wildlife and each other as well, in a special place. Does that sound okay? Great. Okay, I'll do that. Better remind me to do that. Right. I think that's it, isn't it? Okay. 4:20. Are there any other comments on those last set of reports, brief reports? No. Okay, probably everyone's desperate to get away, which I can understand. The next meeting is on November the 3rd. The 3rd. As I've said, if you do have time and you want to go back on some of those reports and just inform yourself a little bit better, please do so. And hopefully we'll have a reasonably normal summer, or the rest of the summer. And we'll see you. Oh, wait a minute, we've got the tour, haven't we?
Yes.
You'll be notified of.
Yeah, the tour is probably the next highlight in your calendars, and yes, and then we'll meet in November. And I just want to say thank you for everyone for trialling our inaugural hybrid meeting. I think we've got through it without any serious hiccups. So definitely moving forward, we'll hopefully continue with these hybrid meetings. But it's obviously always a pleasure to see you face to face, but it'll also be more efficient with some of you, certainly those having to travel longer distances, being able to join online.
And those online, are you happy with it? Yeah, able to contribute when you wanted to? Great. Okay, that augurs well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, and thank you all for your time here today.
Great.
Okay, meeting closed.